Welcome, everyone. You're listening to Risky Behavior, where no subject is off limits. Sit back, tune in, and enjoy a beverage with us as we explore controversial issues and answer your health and wellness related concerns, ranging from nutrition and exercise to sex and prescription drugs. I'm here with co host Dr. Shetha Chakraborty, who's a national media risk expert as seen on CNN, the BBC, Fox News, and more.
But don't just think this show is all science as usual. After 4 seasons as a regular guest and food scientist on the Dr. Oz show, Dr. Taylor Wallace, who the Huffington Post calls the nation's premier food and nutrition guru, will help me loosen lips and spill tea with special guests that you would not want to miss.
Let's jump right into today's show.
So we have today Jonathan Bardzik, who's based here in Washington. Hi, Jonathan. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
And Jonathan, you describe yourself as all things. So you're a storyteller, you're a cook, you're an author. In addition to that, you're all things food, joy, and connection. So why choose those 3 descriptors? How does that define you and your work?
I believe that life can and should be lived with joy every single day. And one of the most accessible ways I think we can do that is by cooking a simple meal, setting a table, and sharing it with the people we love.
That's amazing. And Jonathan also has a new book out. It's called Seasoned to Taste. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the book and the inspiration behind the book?
Sure. I got started cooking in front of audiences 8 years ago here at DC's farm markets. I grew up eating fresh seasonal food right from my parents' gardens and the farms that were around us. And I find those ingredients today at the farm market. I started this with the idea that if we knew what this food was, why it was so special, and what to do with it, we'd bring more home and have more fun. In the last 8 years, I think I've done that, and I've seen people having more fun in their kitchens, and this book captures the recipes that I've created for those fresh seasonal demos.
As a food scientist, I've always been kind of, an apple is an apple kind of thing, whether it comes from the grocery store or whether it comes from the farmer's market. But I tell you, just having moved to DuPont Circle, and we have this wonderful DuPont Circle farmer's market.
I was there Sunday.
I mean, like the peaches, the tomatoes. I mean, because I don't think most people realize that many fruits in particular are what we call climacteric fruits, which mean they ripen. So when your grandmother put that tomato in a bag on the windowsill, climacteric fruits produce ethylene gas, and that's why the fruit ripens. So, when you pick fruits from California, you put them on big trucks, and you flush the truck with ethylene gas, and it ripens by the time it gets to the grocery store. And that's why those tomatoes taste so bad. But man, they just taste so good when they're local and they're here at the farmer's market. I just love it.
They're amazing. The other thing about tomatoes is there's that chemical in them called lycopene, which apparently is easily damaged by cold, and you've got to chill them to ship them across country, and so you've damaged some of those flavor compounds by the time they get here.
Right. Well, so let's jump in today. I've got to be a little bit provocative. Every year about this time, we have this new Dirty Dozen list that comes out. And I mean, as a nutrition scientist, it just inflames me. It's a list that's put out by this group called the Environmental Working Group. Don't go to their website. None of their information is useful. But they basically list the 12...
That was the anti-plug, ladies
That
and
was the
gentlemen.
anti-plug. They put out this list of 12 fruits and vegetables that they've assessed to have higher pesticide levels in. And I think it's a bad thing because it discourages people from consuming fruits and vegetables. And so, I don't want everybody to think I'm the only guru out there that's against this. So, tell people eat their fruits and vegetables, go to the farmer's market, get foods.
And just before you get into that, I just want to say I'm not representing all women by any means, but I am a woman of childbearing age, and so many of my friends are within a few years of me here and there, and nobody's giving away their age on the show. But they are terrified of bringing anything from this list home that isn't organic because of what it will do to either their pregnancy or their newborn or their toddler. So this is something that I think this audience and our circles of friends are really concerned about. So let's dispel some of these myths. Please, Jonathan, help us.
So we can dive into the details on pesticides and versus organic and all that. The first thing that I would say is when I was a kid, we had a subscription to Discover Magazine, which is a science magazine, and there was an issue on shark attacks. And they had a list inside the magazine of the top 10 ways that people die. Falling airplane parts from the sky rated higher than shark attacks. And yet, I think the average person doesn't walk around every day worried about whether they're going to be hit by falling airplane parts. I know a lot of people who go to the beach and are nervous that there's going to be a shark out there in the water.
Perception versus reality 101. This is music to my ears. I love that you're bringing up these comparisons because it's true. People don't know the base rate statistics. Sorry to interrupt, please.
No, please. So if I don't know, kale has been on that list before on the Dirty Dozen. If kale has some of the highest levels of pesticides that they've found, how does that compare to, say, the risk of, I don't know, all the sugar in our diet right now? For instance, I know that there's some questionable science on whether GMOs are dangerous or not, and quite frankly, an incredibly large body of research continues to show that there's not. On the other hand, we know that there's a health epidemic in this country based on eating too much sugar, and yet I just saw a meme on Instagram the other day from a nutritionist who posted, "We will eat junk food without thinking about it, but the second that we sit down to eat health food, we suddenly become scientific researchers."
Right.
That's very well put. And it's true. The pesticide residue is really minimal. You're never going to have zero residue of anything. You're never going to have zero risk. Even though we become increasingly better at managing our food systems, people have become increasingly scared. We've never been better regulated. We can detect toxicology to parts per billion. It used to be parts per million, right? So people just don't understand these numbers. So what they hear is there's 0.0000 whatever risk, but you're saying there's a risk. That's what I'm hearing.
Right. And, it's a scare tactic. And like I said, it brings fruit and vegetable intake down. And hopefully all of you all out there that are listening in today, you're washing your fruits and vegetables before you consume them, because fruits and vegetables are one of the top vectors of foodborne illness around. So, we like to go around the grocery store and touch all those apples and get the perfect one. It's an easy way to spread foodborne illness. And, so I think that needs to be a piece of this as well.
I think I've overcorrected, because just to prove a point, I will just start biting into apples and popping grapes in the supermarket. You're saying I should not be doing that.
No.
Especially not if they're organic, right? Because isn't it more risky not washing organic?
With issues like this, the place that I usually come down, and I think this is a very Washington, D.C. way of understanding the world. I've lived here for 15 years, and this thought has kept growing for me, is that I've learned there are very few issues that are well covered in 2 sentences. Most of them take 2 paragraphs, 2 pages, or 2 volumes.
Very DC.
And so I think when we look at questions like, where's the risk in taking a bite of that apple in the grocery store? Is organic less safe? It becomes much more complex. First of all, I think it's important to say that organic produce is not grown without pesticides. In fact, there are a few synthetic pesticides
Let's underline that
are approved for use in certified organic growing. There are also non-synthetic pesticides that are used in organic growing that I feel less safe having around my food than some of the synthetic ones.
Right.
Where this issue always looks a little bit to me like the anti-vaxxing thing. And I think that there's a little bit of this luxury of not starving, of significantly increased lifespans. If we went back 50 years and said, hey, pesticides are awful, we'd have a whole bunch of people saying, yeah, but I'm starving, and I know a lot of people who died by the age of 45.
Right.
This is not a big problem in life.
Right.
So what do you tell communities? Because you do a lot of this here and around Washington, D.C., where you share cooking, you share the joy of eating a meal together. What is it that when these fears come up, because when you interact with audiences, I'm sure you get some of these questions that we get on the regular being tweeted into us. Yeah. So how do you dispel fears? And is it more about dispelling fears or more about refocusing people on what you would like them to pay attention to?
So my stock answer when I get asked first if how important is organic is this. I believe in buying from people. So when you have the luxury of buying from a farmer, of going to a local market, of knowing who has produced your food, I look that person in the eyes every week, and they've got to sell to me and the rest of their customers every week. They depend on us for their livelihood. They're also feeding this same food to their children and grandchildren. They're the professionals. If they have a chemical and they understand it and they're applying it properly, they know how to use it, and it's necessary to get that crop to market, I'm comfortable with eating it.
Well, and one of the things that I was really, and I should be embarrassed as a nutrition scientist to, even share this, but, I was up in Canada last year visiting the canola fields. And, I'm from Kentucky. And so you see those big tractors with the big sprayer arms that come by. And so, in my mind, it was like, okay, you're spraying all these chemicals on food. And, the farmer came out with a little mason jar, just a regular pint mason jar, and it was about a third full. And he looked at me, he's like, this is the actual amount of Roundup that we put on an entire football field of canola. The rest is all water. Because what you do is you get the weeds when they're small, and so it doesn't take anything to kill it. Oh, by the way, Roundup's 5,000 times more safe than table salt, less toxic.
Right. And that's the kind of thing,
Toxic.
again, if you can frame it in that way, then it makes more sense. But people don't understand numbers. So we as a science community have also not done a great job of explaining risk to people. So when we say, oh, don't worry, we've got this covered, there's only this much risk, again, that's not the best way to put it forward. So I like what you're doing, Jonathan, presenting it as a story the way you are, saying, look at the human component to this. These are people that know what they're doing. It's their expertise. I wouldn't tell a lawyer how to, deal with the legal system or litigate. So why would you tell somebody who does this for a living how they should be producing their products? So I can appreciate that. I think but then what do you tell women, especially those who are more vulnerable in the sense that they are recent mothers or they might be pregnant, in terms of how to prepare for a child, how to then in those early years ensure that they are doing everything correctly for that child? That's a population that I have yet to really be able to communicate risk to well, because it is such a vulnerable state of time for women in their lives. And allergies seem to be on the rise. How do we begin to address that?
Part of it is just not being so afraid of our food. I think that there is this message out there right now that food is the enemy. There's a product out there that I see advertised all the time right now that does genetic testing for food, and the core of the ads are these actors, these are not real stories, who are sitting there saying to the camera, well, my doctor said I was fine and I had no allergies, and but I took this test and I discovered that almonds are killing me, or
Right.
I eat this really clean diet and I discovered that dairy's awful for my particular genes. And I think two things with that. First of all, food is not the enemy. Like, tell me when you're getting 8 hours of sleep a night, you're drinking plenty of water, and you are not having McDonald's for breakfast 4 days a week, and then we can talk about whether kale or almonds is the problem in your diet.
Does wine count as water? It's hydrating.
We need to move to France. We belong in France. That's where it's water.
It's got antioxidants. Leave me alone.
You're in good company. Please, you were saying.
So I think the first part of fear is making sure that we're scared of the right stuff, and then
Telling the story, holistically, not just pulling out one component by itself, but framing it against all of the different human behaviors that all contribute to your overall wellness and health.
this is the same thing. I talk to people about organic and other issues, and I sit there and think, in fact, I was just talking to a friend who is diabetic, and he got the advice, you've got to watch out for, and he's relatively recently diagnosed type 2. So this is not advanced diabetes. This is not type 1. And he's, talking about carrots and corn and potatoes. And
That's not the problem.
I sat there and said, when you stop eating dessert 7 nights a week, let's talk about the problem that corn is causing
Right.
in your
Right.
diet. Right? Spoiler, you didn't become type 2 diabetic because you were eating too many vegetables that had too much starch in them.
Right.
Right.
So I think it's looking at risk in the right place. If you are worried about the health of your child, and it's a wonderful thing, there are a lot of places that we can look to, spending time making sure your household is calm, making sure that they are eating whole foods with good basic nutrition. Once you've covered all of that, the detail, we are resilient as human beings. We are resilient animals. I think some of those small fears around the edge go away as long as you are covering the basics.
So I guess let's go more practical now, because you have this new book, Season to Taste, out, and we're all on the go. I mean, even myself as a food nutrition scientist, I mean, I have a hard time sometimes getting fruits and vegetables into my diet. Give me some simple tips from your book. How can these moms, because you're right, the most important thing they need to be worried about is getting fruits and vegetables in their kids' diet, because what we know is these infants get these like sugary, like kind of infant crackers and all this stuff when they should be getting fruits and vegetables. How does mom do that easily when she's on the go?
I think number one is make choices when you shop. So make sure that the food that is in your house is actually whole foods, is fruits and veggies, rather than all of this packaged processed stuff.
Whole Foods, not to be confused with Whole Foods.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So buy
Distinction.
fruits and vegetables. Buy things that are identifiable as having come off the farm and are minimally or completely unprocessed. Having those foods makes it far more likely that you're going to be eating them. When somebody asks for a snack, if there's a piece of fruit around and there aren't cookies, there aren't bars, they're going to have to eat a piece of fruit.
Yeah. And I think, another thing, another barrier to that is a lot of people have the perception that fruits and vegetables, or at least what we call whole fruits and vegetables, are expensive. And I think, a lot of people don't realize the frozen section of the grocery store, if you're not able to shop at that farmer's market and pay $1 more for that fresh fruit and vegetable, that the frozen fruits and vegetables are a great alternative. And in fact, sometimes they're more nutritious for you.
For sure, a lot of that stuff gets preserved at the peak of its nutrition. This is, again, back to that issue of things are often better discussed in paragraphs than they are in sentences. One of the major issues, and I on my Uber ride over here to the studio today, I was in the car with a driver who told me that he's a single dad and trying to feed healthier food to his kids. And he's also on a budget. So he was talking about going to some less expensive grocery store chains. And I thought that one of the issues that has to be pulled out of all of this is the best food is the food that you can afford and that ends up on your table. And so he said, how do I make decisions? And I said, it doesn't matter whether it's organic. It doesn't matter whether it's from the farm market. At the end of the day, if you are, again, buying whole identifiable foods, preparing them from scratch at home, even quickly and easily, you're going to end up with a healthier diet than you are if you go buy a bunch of packaged and heavily processed foods.
Net, that's the better move. And we need to stop making parents feel guilty that they're not being able to necessarily get out to the farmer's market all the time either. I mean, that's ideal, right? We want to say is to buy local.
So
but
I like buying local. I think that a lot of that fresh food tastes better. As a cook, as someone who cooks for audiences
Right.
for a living, getting those great ingredients goes a long way towards having better tasting food. I recognize that that's not the reality for all of us all the time. It's not always the reality for me. I have incredibly busy work weeks where the what goes on my table is what I can get to fastest. So I still try, though, to make that decision to get whole ingredients and prepare them myself. If I can't, I just had a wonderful lunch before coming in here today. I got a dish on the table where I could identify each of those ingredients that was showing up, and it wasn't something that had been sort of heavily mashed together and, again, processed.
okay, I appreciate that, but I just discovered a handheld blender and it's changed my life. I can't recognize anything in it, but I'm sipping it right now from this mug and it's phenomenal.
Oh, she's
They
on
were
the smoothie diet now.
But that still started with the things that you
Right.
put into that blender were all ingredients that you could identify and name this morning.
Right, true.
Right. In talking to nutritionists and registered dietitians over the years, the answers that I keep getting are that this is fairly simple, that barring serious medical complications that create the need for a specific diet, we should be eating fresh food, more plant-based than animal-based, and most of it prepared from scratch, not heavily processed.
Well, that brings me to an interesting point, because I was just at one of our dietary guidelines advisory committee meetings down in Houston, and it was very apparent, especially from the public comments, that you have a guy that had a heart attack, that lost a ton of weight on like a keto diet, and he's swearing by this keto diet, and he's a medical doctor, and he's treated like his patients with the keto diet. And then you've got another doctor that's like, she had XY disease, or I can't remember the exact condition she had, but she went all plant-based and whole plants, vegan, like that, and she's cured so many people off this thing. And you know what the evidence says? The evidence really kind of goes back to what you were saying. It's about diet quality. It's about the quality of the foods that we're consuming. So you can be a vegan, and if you're eating potato chips and French fries all day, you're just as bad off if you're eating cheeseburgers and on, one of those keto diets. So it's kind of like, if I'm a plant-based person, like, and I'm getting my soy protein shake and like taking my multivitamin and getting some of those nutrients we get from animal-derived foods, or I'm a keto person that's eating a grilled chicken salad, for lunch. Those, they pretty much work out the same. I mean, it's all about the quality of the food we eat. I think you're absolutely right.
The thing that drives me nuts about sort of our cultural obsession with diets right now is by saying we're always on a diet, we're normalizing the idea that you're supposed to be on a diet.
Right.
And to me, the diet you're on is what you eat 7 days a week, 365 days a year for the next 40, 50 years that you are alive.
Diet means food intake,
right,
not
it is
fad.
It's not what you do for the next 2 weeks or the next 2 months. And I think the problem with normalizing this is I talk to friends who go on diets and suddenly they're losing weight, or they're healthier, they feel better, they're more energetic in the morning, and they attribute that to the diet. Oh, it was gluten that was doing this. It was animal products. Spoiler, it's the fact that you suddenly became mindful of the food that you're putting in your body, and you stopped loading in a bunch of crap. You in giving up gluten, you just stopped having pizza for 2 meals a day, and that
it's Whole30 and paleo and all
right?
that. They don't have the crap.
It's not the diet, it's that you're now eating good, healthy food.
Absolutely. Okay, so I have to say, I'm a food scientist, and I know the chemistry behind everything that happens in the skillet, right? And so then I get in there into the kitchen like that, and then it turns out like complete shit. So I'm glad I have a chef here today, because one of the things I've been experimenting with, and I love this, and I encourage everybody to try it, because cruciferous vegetables have amazing health benefits beyond providing basic nutrition.
He
like
still
vitamins
uses
and
big
minerals.
words.
Yeah, I still use big words sometimes. Cruciferous vegetables are things like broccoli and cauliflower, but I have started incorporating cauliflower rice, cauliflower pizza crust. Okay, tell me how to cook cauliflower. Like, I am obsessed with cauliflower.
How do you
right
make
now.
cauliflower rice taste good? Because I
And still
failed
be
at that
healthy?
too.
Yeah.
Cauliflower rice is hard. It's really specific in terms of time to get the right texture to it. I have this basic feeling about giving up foods, and I would say this about cauliflower rice and cauliflower crust pizza.
Really?
So I feel like we, for a lot of reasons, health, values, medical reasons, we give up foods. And then we obsess about replacing those foods in our diet. So I'm not going to eat gluten, but tonight I'm having spiralized zucchini, and tomorrow it's cauliflower crust pizza, and then cauliflower rice and almond flour bread. Rather than just saying, hey, I gave up like 7% of the food in the world. Amazingly, 93% of it's left. Rather than coming up with B minus C plus substitutes for the 7% I just gave up, why don't I spend all of my time eating A plus versions of the other 93%? So I love cauliflower, and this is not about shaming any of those ways of eating these foods. I love cauliflower. My brother swears by cauliflower crust pizza and loves it, so go ahead and eat it. For cauliflower, for me, I find it pairs really well with cheese sauce for sure. I like it a lot with caraway. It's fantastic roasted in the oven. It develops those natural sugars, the Maillard effect. So that's one of my favorite ways to eat cauliflower. Again, zucchini, we mentioned the spiralized noodles. I'm not shaming that. I think it's a great way to eat zucchini. I think the challenge and what ultimately gets us from sort of living our best lives is when we sit down to that plate of spiralized zucchini and we think that we're eating really disappointing semolina flour pasta rather than saying, God, I love zucchini and this is an awesome plate of zucchini in front of me tonight.
Well, so the food science side of me says, when we look at our diet, and really at this dietary guidelines advisory committee meeting, they put up this big slide and what's contributing to calories, fat, all of the negative things in our diet. It's burgers, sandwiches, and pizza. So it's like how can we begin to kind of incorporate some healthy things? 'Cause I'm not giving up pizza, and I don't think anybody else is as well, right?
This is not a good day for substitutions, is it? But that being said, what are some substitutions of our favorite foods?
So here's my feeling on that is it's about sort of accepting reality, and I think that food marketing has gotten so far away from that. So we know that we should not be eating a pint of ice cream every single day of the week, right? There was a great opinion piece in the Post a couple of years ago in the food section, and the writer said we're misusing the word healthy when it comes to food. Healthy does not describe foods, healthy describes diets. So that pint of ice cream isn't unhealthy, right? Foods either have or do not have nutrition. They have relative levels of nutrition to the number of calories that they're delivering. So that pint of ice cream has pretty decent nutrition, right? There's good dairy in there. There might be some fruit in there. There's also a lot of sugar and a lot of calories for it, a lot of dairy fats. So we know objectively, if we stop and think about it for a second, that you just shouldn't have ice cream 7 nights a week. Right. And I'd say the same thing with pizza. So rather than sitting there going, you know what, I want pizza 7 days a week, I'm going to eat it. It's the same thing with spending money, right? Like, you can't go on vacation 50 weeks a year, and you just accept that and you go on vacation 2 weeks a year. So if you should eat pizza twice a week, get really good pizza twice a week with a great flour crust, nice and crispy, your favorite sauce, lots of cheese. If you want all those meats on it, go for it. But have it twice a week and accept that the rest of the week you're just going to have to eat something different. People often ask me, how do I make this healthier and lighter? And I say, by getting a salad.
Yeah.
Like, go eat those mashed potatoes, go have that steak. But if you know that you shouldn't have that on Wednesday for lunch, get a salad.
Well, Shetha and I have a very minimal risk of osteoporosis with all the ice cream that we eat. So, we're getting that calcium in our diet.
It's really about the wine that we drink, too.
Well, that's true. We got all those antioxidants in the wine that make our bones and heart really strong, right? That's why we're so passionate about what we do, right?
Exactly.
We have strong hearts.
That's why we attract passionate guests like Jonathan.
Right. Okay, well, that's it for this week. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, remember to check us out every week. Have ideas for the show? Tweet us at Dr. Taylor Wallace and at Shetha C. Thanks for tuning in to Risky Behavior. Until next time.